Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Pastor Paul Allieu Kamara, Professor of Leadership and Administration of Rudolph University. Please don't forget to log in on our Facebook. You will see my name, Paul Allieu Kamara, and as well as my YouTube. Just log in or press subscribe on the left side or the right side of your YouTube. You will get subsequent copies or teachings of our administrative and leadership channels that we have done on series. Today we are looking at administration and management skills, but we'll be focusing on bench make or marking. We'll be focusing on bench marking. So we are going to be doing few things. One of them is looking at the definition, the referential comparables. We do element of benchmarks, and if possible, work on identifications before we will close down on this area of administrative benchmarking this session. First, I would like us to start with the definition of benchmarking. What is benchmarking? Simply put, benchmarking is the basic comparison of one organization's and performance against those of others. It can be a thought of as a way to research conduct, or as a way to a research conduct on how to improve a company or business. Benchmark seeks to identify the following: one, standards or best practices to apply in measuring and improving performance. The objective of benchmarking is to find examples of superior performance in an industry or business, and to understand the process and practices driving that performance. Two, companies then can improve their performance by tailoring and incorporating these best practices into their own operations. This is done not by imitating, but by innovating. Additionally, in a business, benchmark or benchmarking is a quality improvement tool that identifies the following: one, what are you doing? Two, how are you doing it? Three, how others do it. 4, and how well are you doing it? And 5, what and how to improve. Number 2, we are looking at referential comparables. Once an initial set of comparables companies are selected and key financial statistics, ratios, and trading multipliers are targeted, businesses then set out to perform benchmarking analysis. Benchmarking centers on 1. Analyzing and comparing each of the comparable companies with one another and a target. The ultimate objective is to determine the target's relative ranking so as to frame valuations accordingly. Number 2, at the onset, managers typically own in on a selected group of the closest comparables as the basis for establishing the target implies valuation rank or range. In this process, there is a 2-stage progression. First, managers benchmark the key financial statistics and ratio for the targets and their comparables in order to establish relative positioning, with a focus on identifying the closest or best comparables and nothing potential outlier. Second, managers then analyze and compare the data collected from the peer group, placing particular emphasis on the base or the best comparison or comparables. Number 3, element of benchmarking. To start the process of benchmarking, it is important to identify key elements by asking thought-provoking questions. As Egler suggests in 2009, the following question can be used by companies. 1. Do you benchmark leadership? Do you benchmark your leadership within your team, group, and/or organization? If so, how? If not, how do you measure yourself, your colleague, or subordinate as leaders? How do you identify emerging leaders within your team, group, or organization? The answer to these questions will help you conduct the benchmark or benchmarking process. He also mentioned that when reviewing the answer, pay attention to the following tip. Prioritize. Pick something significant to your organization that you have a good chance of changing and the resources to do. After choosing no more than 10 processes to focus on, you will be ready to begin the process. So the following tips can be used as a guide on how to conduct the critical steps of the benchmarking process. 1. Select a benchmark or marking team. 2. Research and document the process or practices you have selected and identify performance measure. 3. Select benchmarks partners. 4. Decide what you want to find out and answer the question. What organizations are like to have that information and what are their characteristics. Look for peer organization or competitors and best practice organizations. The top 20% or so of performance, this will help identify your performance standard. We look at plan data collection and then collect data. List what you want to find out about practice, process, performance, measure, and problem areas. Formulate the question to uncover the information you want. How do you handle customers' problem? What level of performance is realistic? Choose data collection method and collect the data. Compare the performance to identify superior performance and performance gap. Select areas or scenarios for improvement and target. Develop and implement strategies for change. And finally, number 10, after implementation, change, remeasure performance, and repeat step 5 through 9. And this is a conscious improvement process. Number 4, identification. As McDouglas and Hens says in 2000, benchmarking can be limited by the ability to identify the priority or performance indicators that can measure contemporary issues such as customer satisfaction. The research for benchmark or benchmarking issues can be applied to the human environment, home of the discussed knowledge work. Research indicates that far relies on the influence of the market, the organization culture, the type of users, the external political conditions. Facilities and business managers often fail to consider this influence in the selections of the performance priorities. Summarily, the tendency to rely on a general set of indicators leads to benchmarking issues that are often not helpful in pursuit of continuous improvement. Benchmarking issues are more clearly understood to need rich analysis than investigative method could provide. Number 5, admission or assimilations. The concept of assimilation is sometimes interchanged with adaptations. Assimilation is a term referring to another part of the adequation process. Through assimilations, we take in new information or experiences and incorporate them into our existing ideas. The process is somewhat objective because we tend to modify our experience or information somewhat to fit in with our pre-existing beliefs. Another way to define the term is the act of becoming part of something or the process of becoming part or more like something greater. How does it work? There are 2 basic ways that we can adapt to new experiences and information. Assimilation is the easiest method because it does not require a great deal of adjustment. Through this process, we add new information to our existing knowledge based, sometimes knowledge based, sometimes sometimes adjusting. Um, we also look at adaptations. Number six, in regard to the term adaptations, the concept refers to something that has been modified to suit different conditions or different purposes. At the core, adaptation utilizes benchmarking because benchmarking may entails adopt and adapting ideas, practice, and methods with permission from the benchmarking participant. As we close on this teachings this afternoon, we close with benchmarking and process improvement. Benchmarking improve performance by identifying and applying best demonstrated practices to operations and sales manager comparing the performance of their product or process externally with those of the comparative or competitor in class company or internally with other operations within their own reach. We'll be looking at the next part of this benchmarking in our next YouTube. Once again, I thank you for listening and for learning. Don't forget to subscribe. Just go into the subscribe button and just subscribe. You'll get subsequent of our YouTube, subsequent copies of our YouTube that were there online for your edification or learning. My name is Pastor Paul Allieu Kamara, Professor of Administration and Leadership from Rudolph Kwanue University. Thank you very much. I'll be coming your way again on my next YouTube.